Before Curtis's famous P-40 Warhawk series, the company produced the Curtis P-36, which was sold on the export market as the Hawk 75. This was essentially the same airframe that would go on to be the P-40, but with a radial engine instead of the Allison inline engine. And whilst there have been some older models of the P-36, there hasn't really been a super detailed new one in 1/72nd scale until now, with the Arma Hobby Curtis H75 you see before you. I've already released an unboxing video, so if you want to get yourself up to speed, then you should watch that first, as this video will be focusing on the build of the kit. So without any further preamble, let's just get to it, shall we? This kit was first released in 2025, and I've counted 82 parts, although that is just me counting them, and because there's 82, there's always the chance that I've missed one or added one. There are 3 Decals schemes, although there's actually 4, which we'll go into later. It's 3 and a bit, and the recommended retail price at the time of purchase, which was when it first came out in the summer of 2025, was £21.99. Construction actually begins with this incredibly well-engineered folding piece. This is the wheel well interior detail, and it shows a representation of the structure of the internal wings, and it's just been moulded absolutely beautiful for you to be able to fold it neatly together. You just add a dab of glue to that last one. As long as you're gentle with it, it won't snap in half. It is absolutely fantastic. You've got one for each wheel well, of course. Now, I've actually decided to not use this part, but I wanted to just test it to at least be able to show you guys, if you want to do this, yes, it does work. I am going instead for the cover, because the P-36 and later P-40s had a canvas cover inside the wheel well to catch any dirt or residue that was being flung up from potentially rough airstrips. I've glued those in on both sides, and then the entire top wing can go on top. Most of the internal cockpit detail is then glued onto this centre wing piece, so it's the middle bit of the top wing piece. We have the fuselage halves then going around the detail, and it again is so well engineered that as long as you stick them in a straight line, they're perfect. They're in the right place. They don't catch on any of the other detail. Although we do have a couple of parts that go on the internal walls. I don't know what all of these are. There's obviously some throttle detail moulded onto there, and that's on both sides. The rear bulkhead, which includes the mounting point for the seat, also goes on at this point. And I'm painting everything in interior green. This is American interior green, just kind of a bog standard colour. I don't know if it's correct for the P-36. I know that P-40s were often painted a darker interior green. I would assume the P-36 was as well. Either way, I couldn't be bothered to mix a new colour, so I didn't. Extra detail was then picked out in black and in silver as appropriate according to the instructions. There's also a little red handle on what I believe is the throttle control as well. Before we move on to a ridiculous number of decals, just look at all of these. 15 of these will end up on the interior, or in the interior of this tiny aircraft. And this is what the instrument panel looks like when done. Yeah, that's very nice. Bearing in mind, 1/72nd scale, my hands aren't even that big, and it's smaller than my finger. Look at that. Just ridiculous. It is slightly tricky to get a couple of them to stay in place, so I did blast them with a little bit of varnish as well, but an incredibly detailed interior for such a small aircraft. Citadel Colours contrast paint, the Basilisk's Anus Grey, or whatever they want to call it, is the colour that I use as a standard wash. This is just thinned with water. It's pretty thin anyway, but thinned with water and chucked over the entire interior surfaces just to add a little bit of depth. It does also address the darkening that I mentioned at the beginning, as it probably should be a bit darker than this interior grey anyway. The instrument panel can then be glued in, but I would recommend that it is glued in just before you're about to glue the fuselage half together, so that it's still wet, still pliable a little bit, to make sure it hits the grooves on both sides, which is ultimately what I did, carefully making sure by using tweezers that it was locked in place on both sides. You can see here on the starboard side it's not quite right, so when everything is glued together, that'll be fine. It then fits over the top of the detail which is on the cockpit floor, and even the handle that goes behind between the seat and the interior wall fits just perfectly. It's just so beautifully engineered. So with that, we can move on to the tail surfaces. We have a separate vertical fin and rudder piece, which makes sense, to be honest. In theory, you can position all the control surfaces up, down, left, right, as you see fit. The elevators are a separate piece there as well, you see. So good. It doesn't mention that in the instructions, but it clearly gives you the functionality to do that if you want. For me personally, I'll just be keeping it relatively straight. For schemes 1 and 2, we are told to remove the vents that are just in front of the cockpit area. So I gently scraped those away with my knife and then just sanded it down with a sanding stick as necessary. Obviously, if you're doing scheme 3, you apparently don't need to do that. The engine comes in 3 main parts. We have the piston ring at the back, then the rings at the front. It's not piston ring, you know, the block of pistons at the rear, and then the block of pistons for the front, and they overlap like that. The cover then forms the front piece of the engine, goes on over the top of that. There is no facility within the tooling for the propeller blades to spin, because you would need a retaining pin and some space within this hub for the shaft, which there isn't. You just glue the shaft on as and when. The gun sight is a solid part as opposed to a clear part that is glued on at this stage and can then just be painted black. And there's also the headrest painted a sort of dark leather colour as well. The interior of the cowling can be either aluminium or green. The instructions tell you which one is for which scheme. This one apparently will have it green. So that was all painted at the same time as the interior, just whilst it was still on the sprue, and it's then cut off. I would advise gluing it in the exact order that they suggest, top first, then the sides, because there's a little bit of a gap around the cowling ring. So this is the best way of getting it to fit without that gap being either missed or in the wrong place. As long as you follow the order of the instructions, this is a joy to put together. It's fine. You'd expect it to be fiddly, but it actually just kind of falls together. I guess that sums up the entire kit, really. It just falls together. Probably the only part of the kit that wasn't overly clear was the exact placement of these exhausts. Had to just kind of move around until they more or less stayed still, so I guess there was a small hole there, but that could have been a little bit better. And we also have the barrels for the machine guns in the nose. These parts are horrendously tiny, and I'm amazed that I didn't drop them and lose them to the carpet monster, but thankfully they are in place. And just, I mean, some of these parts, like this, which is, I believe, the filler cap, there's a fuel tank behind the pilot, just tiny, and yet it's been moulded absolutely beautifully. Basically, if you're building this kit, make sure you have tweezers nearby. Like with the P40 airframe, this part will be underneath a clear part that you have to drill a hole through. So that is what I'm doing here. They have marked it on the clear bit of plastic. Obviously, it would be nicer if they moulded it with a hole in it, but alas, they did not. But again, by marking it clearly and just by lining it up, you can drill a hole, open it up slightly with a file, and just keep lining it up against that cap just to make sure that it's not too much bigger than it, and obviously that it is not smaller than it, and you should be alright. These side windows can then be glued in place. Here is your reminder that on the P-36 and P-40, the area behind these windows was exterior colour. Therefore, it has been painted in the base colour of grey, which you'll see later. Don't paint it interior green because it's not an interior piece, even if there are certain manufacturers that tell you to do so. Doing that will be wrong and you'll make Captain VFC very sad. The rest of the canopy can then slot in place, which is a windscreen. There are alternate versions depending on which particular P-36 or Hawk you are making, and then there is the main sliding canopy piece. I believe you can display this with the canopy open, and there is so much detail inside that that's definitely a valid thing to do. Me, on the other hand, decided to keep it closed. There is a canopy mask supplied with this kit, which is incredibly helpful, especially for those horrible side windows. In my mind, this goes some way to justify the rather expensive price for this kit, the good quality pre-cut masks being, well, very appreciated. Being part of my contribution to French February, I am going to be painting this in French colours, and for that I've bought this Lifecolour Arme de l'Air set. These are formulated for brush painting, but they can be thinned and put through the airbrush as well, and we have a little bit of an explanation as to what the colours represent in case you needed to know. Ultimately, though, The French in particular were not sticklers for the rules, and they would often just paint something the nearest colour that they could find, and there was no set camouflage pattern when in the period immediately before the war. It was just a case of, here's some paint, go for it. But we're starting off with the underside colour, which is a pale greyish blue. I actually thinned mine with some Hataka thinner that I have. It seems to work really well with everything, so I've been using it for pretty much everything. Chucked in the airbrush and just sprayed liberally over the underside of the aircraft. For whatever reason, I didn't prime this. I don't know why I didn't. In hindsight, probably should have done, but never mind. This paint went on perfectly fine and the plastic wasn't greasy or anything. Blue tack and tape were then used, obviously when the aircraft was dry, to mask off these bottom surfaces before moving to a darker greyish blue colour for the base top surface. This is the colour that was used behind those side windows, which, as you can see here, have had some of the same interior green brush painted over them, just so that if you see through the canopy, you're going to get green before you get grey. Nice, simple, easy job. There's no point me showing it off on camera. These paints went on absolutely fine through the airbrush. Very, very nice. I can't tell you the ratio between thinner and paint because I just eyeballed it and just waited until it looked about right, put it through, and yeah, it seemed fine. For the top colour, we're using this khaki, this French khaki colour, and I opted for brush painting. I was having a bit of a moment. I just could not face masking this ridiculously complicated scheme, so I thought, as they're brush ready paints, I would brush paint it, do it by eyeball. This is the weakest part of the end result, in my opinion. It would have been much nicer had I actually airbrushed it. The consistency, it kind of looks like they're oversaturated, basically. When I say consistency, it looks too solid, thick of a colour. I probably should have toned it down. Yes, there are ways that you can do that afterwards, but I was kind of done. The same is true of the brown, which is being used as the other top camouflage colour. Again, all of it just brush painted, and all of it looks a little bit too saturated, in my opinion. I'm not at this stage not going to blame Lifecolour for choosing silly colours or something. I expect it's fully my fault, but I will at some stage try these through an airbrush and see what sort of colour they come out with at the end. Generally, my experience with brush painting is that yes, you do get a slightly oversaturated look that would need to be toned down if you can be bothered, if you're a better modeller than I am. The entire aircraft has been sprayed with gloss varnish in preparation for the decals, and this is where there is a sort of fourth scheme. The first option is available in two options, early or late. The only real difference is that this motif, this bird emblem, has been painted over on the later one and moved further forwards, the space being occupied with big French insignia instead, but I thought it would look a little bit different to do this one. One of my pet hates is tail decals, and the reason why they're a pet hate is because there's always going to be a bit of carrying film that just extends over it, and if the shape isn't right, it's an absolute faff. But there is no option with this one because there is text over the top of it. Sometimes they will give you the text separately, or some brands will give you the text separately and you can paint the stripes. Not Arma Hobby. Nope, the whole thing is in one. And this was far too much of my evening spent trying to make this look even slightly presentable. And on this kit it was particularly worsened by, on the port hand side, the control for the rudder not being accommodated for in the shape of the decal. So it just kind of cracked over it, and I had to patch that up later. But hey, I got it on and I didn't throw it against the wall, which is fine. All of the other decals were perfect. Absolutely fine. The registration was nice, the colour was nice, all good stuff. So once they were on, the aircraft could be sprayed in some matte varnish to tone it down, and of course the masks removed. And yes, this canopy area looks excellent. Very, very fond of it. Although, full disclosure, I did omit quite a lot of stencils because there were just too many. This US Early Olive Drab is being used for the covers that I mentioned. Yeah, you could paint these and then find a way of masking them off or stuff some blue tack in them. For me, it's a rough texture. You might as well just brush paint it. Radio antenna mast was glued on, and it did get knocked off, and so I glued it on again, and then I think it got knocked off again, and then it was glued on again. Anyway, standard stuff for me. The propeller blade assembly can also go on. No yellow tips on this one, apparently, so there's not there, but it shows it's quite a snug fit. You don't even need any glue. The tail wheel assembly also has a canvas cover that was also painted with the US drab. In case you're wondering why I chose a US drab, it's because I wanted it to look visually different to the French khaki, because that's a colour from France, and the olive drab is just the colour of fabric from America, so it made sense that it looked different. The undercarriage is okay. They can often be a bit of a pig on P40s because of the weird way that they fold, but here the landing gear covers did just slide snugly, that's a hard phrase to say, slide snugly onto the leg, and again with the door here, it felt fiddly until it was right, and then it just clicked and it was done. The other support legs were incredibly small, but with tweezers, again, they just click in place, and then the construction is more or less done. I have, of course, had to mix up an approximate blue to then try and patch up the gap in the tail decal, but with that, I'm calling the P-36 Hawk 75 completed. I enjoy taking part in French February because it gives me an excuse to build something a little bit different. Generally speaking, French aircraft are not something that I've gone out of my way to build, and it is particularly enjoyable when it's an American aircraft that fits into that particular area of interest that I have, which generally speaking is pre-Second World War going into the war, so the interwar period or late interwar period. Despite having been making models for the vast majority of my life, this is actually the first aircraft I've ever completed in this French tricolour scheme. As I've already stated, I do think that the colours are a bit too saturated, it's a bit too in your face, it does look a little bit too toy-like. I expect that is entirely because of me and not because of Lifecolour. That's not to say that I don't like this, but it's one of the kits that I've looked at, or one of the end results that I've looked at and gone, that could actually do with a bit of weathering, that could. But at the time that I was building it, to be honest, I had spent so long just painting and looking at it and having to hold my breath whilst I do all of the careful curves that I just wanted it done. So I accept that there is room for improvement. In terms of the model, this is absolutely fantastic. Yes, I will accept $21.99 in the UK is a bit expensive for a single seat fighter aircraft in 1/72nd scale. If you're looking at something like a P40, which is naturally the same size, anything around a tenner is fine. 15 quid, yeah, higher end, 20 quid, it better be pretty good. This kit, however, is very good. Be it expensive, personally, it is worth it. And yes, I'm saying that a kit that's over 20 quid for this sort of size is worth it. It is absolutely beautiful. It has been engineered to perfection. The way the interior fits together, the way the main components sit nicely together, you could probably build this in your sleep, and yet it still has one of the best interiors I think I've ever seen in this scale. This kit is brilliant. The addition of the paint masks is greatly appreciated, and I expect if you were interested in doing so, you could probably take them off and reuse them. I know that that is possible sometimes. I didn't, I just chucked them in the bin, but greatly appreciated, especially with this one-piece windscreen that this version has. It just makes it a lot easier, and peering through the crystal clear canopy, you can still see so much of that interior detail. In addition to that, Arma Hobby have given you the uncovered wheel well bays and covered options, which excellent, more variety, and they've done the research to tell you the exhausts need to be this type on this plane, or the vents need to be removed, or there's bomb racks that could be there or couldn't be there. So really the only negative thing I could say about the way this kit's presented is that there's no pilot. For me, don't care, I don't use them, but if you were interested in a pilot, it's not there. Everything else about this kit, 10 out of 10. And on that incredibly high praise, I'm going to wrap this one up. If you've liked the video, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you don't subscribe, you could hit the subscribe button, you can hype, and you could even become a channel member like the people appearing on screen. These people know about this kit early because that's generally what I do. There's emotes and things as well, and if I manage to get more members, I'll do more members only things as well. But if you're not interested, or if you can't afford it, that is absolutely fine. Just watching these videos is enough praise from me. And on that note, hopefully you will consider watching another one, and I will see you in that or the comments section soon. Thank you very much for watching. Vive la France, and farewell.